Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I'm here responding to a tag created by Anna from Astral Tarot. This tag is Cliché Tarot Reader, and I thought it was a really wonderful way to engage the community and to poke a little bit of fun at ourselves and just the things that we do, our little idiosyncrasies and the habits and traits and things that we tend to do as tarot readers. Anna's video was extremely poignant and funny. I highly recommend watching it, so I'll have it linked down below along with her channel. I listed a few of the traits and cliches that I share and also partake in, as well as adding a few of my own that I find to be a bit cliche as well. Anna's video was really funny. I remember even commenting, I'm looking down at my comment, that a part where she was mulling over her enemies was really funny, and she said that she was personally tagging me and that I should take on the challenge or I might be added to her list of numerous enemies, and far be it from me to cross Anna in such a way, so here I am responding in turn. And I guess I'll start with the ones that I share. So Anna had mentioned that she has multiple versions of some types of decks. I too have this, and I know I've shared some videos where I go through different versions of types of decks. Specifically, one that might not come as a surprise to anybody who knows me is the Thoth. I have three different types of vintage Thoth decks. This is one of the greenies I have. I have another greenie from a different year that has multiple languages. I have one of the even older ones that's not a greenie but comes in those hard slide boxes, I believe from the 60s. So I have that. I have a trimmed version that I created from a larger but modern version. And I also have a finished version, which was kindly gifted to me by my lovely friend Hanny from Fierce and Pretty. So have that one as well. So that would be a cliche that I most definitely partake in, along with having multiple versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith. I have many types of Marseille, even of the same type. I have multiple Dodal, multiple types of a lot of different types of decks that interest me. I like to compare and have different versions of things I enjoy. Another cliche that I also partake or am a victim of, or a participant in, a perpetuator of, is the fact that I have backup copies of some of my favorite decks. I consider the different versions backup copies, but of other decks that are unique in and of themselves, I do have backup copies of a few that I really enjoy. I actually remember questioning this when I watched a video from Natalia from Ouroboros speaking to, I guess, the psychology behind the idea of having a backup deck. But nonetheless, I do have backup decks of a few of my favorites. I also drink tea, oftentimes when I am doing tarot, or I will feel inclined to pull the cards while drinking tea. This seems to be something that a lot of people in the community do, and Anna mentioned that there might be a link to the idea of it being relaxing and calming, and this more, sage, wise drink to have has spiritual intonations, I guess, and the way that tarot readers like to be perceived or perceive themselves. One that I didn't actually have, or one that doesn't apply to me, but Anna mentioned, and I thought it was really interesting, was having a tarot tattoo, and I'd be curious to know how many people out there do have one. I know she has the Two of Cups from the Triomphe de la Luna. Specifically, I know she likes the paradoxical version the best, but she has the Two Cups from the Two of Cups on her arm, and they look great. I have trouble committing to things like tattoos and permanent fixtures on my body, so I have yet to embark on that type of thing, but I have a feeling that once and if I do get one tattoo, that it'll sort of be a slippery slope, so stay tuned. Maybe there will be tarot tattoos in the future. She also mentioned crystals, which I'm very much a part of, and I do use crystals and have crystals as a tarot reader that I incorporate. I will even sometimes bring in crystals that I know have, I guess, more metaphysical, occult, energetic properties that align with the type of reading I'm doing. So I might pull out a piece of fluorite for something that's a little bit more to do with the mental sphere. I might pull out a piece of lapis lazuli for spiritual matters, things like that. Oh, I apologize if you hear thunder and the lighting. There's a storm going on outside. It was kind of unavoidable. But yes, I do use crystals. I do have crystals as a tarot reader. Anna really nailed it in her cliches because pretty much all of them applied to me, and I'm sure applied to many of you, which is why they are cliches for a reason. So that one I have. The tarot books, yes, many tarot books, and I'm sure if you watch my favorites or recap videos, you'll see each month a lot of the books that I share or have read. I also have videos just sharing books in general, so that one applies to me. The tarot journal, I also, of course, keep a tarot journal. I've shared some of that, or at least my daily tarot journal on here, not my more in-depth one. Anna is quite the journaler from what I know of her, so I'm not sure I can hold a candle to her in that aspect, but I do have 2 active tarot journals at any given point until they fill up. And what else? Loving to shuffle. I would say this one does apply to me, and I think it does to most tarot readers as a cliche, but there are some decks that I don't know, I don't shuffle so much, but I enjoy using. I wouldn't say that's something that I do just to do. I mostly only shuffle when I'm going to use cards, but I'm using cards on a daily basis as a reader for myself and others, so there's that. The fairy lights is one that I really don't actually have any fairy lights, but I do like fairy lights, and depending on where I've been in my life, there have been various times when I've had fairy lights in my space. Candles is a big one, especially if I'm reading at night. I think it has to do a lot with the ambiance, and similar to the tea, the kind of feeling it creates, the connotations that things like candles hold. So yes, I partake in that cliche. And then a tarot table, which I have, and you can kind of see the corner of it right here. This is oftentimes where I'll show examples and things like that. And of course, I'll read cards any and everywhere, but it's important, I guess, as a tarot reader to have a space. And that was something that I did on my own, but then found was, of course, very popular once I started to watch other tarot tubers and other people in the community and what they do. So I guess there's some sort of unconscious pull to create the space for the thing that you enjoy or for the thing that you have a great interest in. So those were some of Anna's cliches that I thought I would just chime in on, but a few of my own that I wanted to share. One is that I do predictive readings. I would say this is a cliche that the public at large holds of tarot readers, more so than inside of the community. But when you say that you enjoy tarot or you do tarot readings or it's part of your profession, one of the biggest things that I get or hear from others is asking about the efficacy of predicting the future or how I'm able to do that, or a big one, and one that I have to kind of in some ways shut down pretty immediately, is, oh, how did you discover this gift, or something like that, akin to that. And yeah, there's a lot going on, but I would say that at the heart of it is really the idea of predictive readings and just the public perception of what a tarot reader is or does. While there are an innumerable amount of ways to use tarot cards, and I would say predictive readings just scratch the surface, I do engage in predictive readings both for myself and others. I personally find them to be I'm morally okay with them. I think that there is an ethical way to go about predictive readings. I view them as forecasts based on choices, nothing set in stone. It's not meant to strip a client or myself or any sort of querent of agency. It's more so meant to offer permutations of current paths and to potentially even look at various offshoots of paths so that we can make choices that are wise, and also to evaluate the consequences and prolonged effects of current circumstances. So I like to approach the predictive aspect in an empowering and more empirical and analytical way, as opposed to a more mystical. I guess there is an element of intuition in the way that I approach it, but I would say it does need some sort of grounding and basis in current reality that factors in free will and choice and agency. But I do engage in predictive readings, and I think that that's a big cliche, not as much within the tarot community, but on and by part of the public, or those who are outside of the tarot community, I would say. Another one is that I have a lot of tarot cloths, bags, and boxes. If you're like me, and I know many are out there based on what I've seen, we like to keep our decks safe. We view them as tools that are sacred and almost like these tomes that are yeah, we like to keep we like to take care of our decks, and we like to do so, I think, in a way that's more aesthetically pleasing, and we have an organization to it all. I have, for example, various types of bags and boxes, and let's see, what else do we have around here? I really value the idea of keeping the deck protected and safe, and I know a lot of us don't like tuck boxes. Sometimes we get decks in those harder boxes, which are nicer to keep and store and tote around, but by and large, I would say I prefer to decant, I guess you could say, my decks into bags that I find better, or yeah, better to keep them in. I also have a bunch of tarot cloths because I know a lot of us are sensitive about just flipping our cards down on any table. There might be wet, might be sticky, we might get the cards scuffed. So I know many of us do care to lay out cloths when we do things. It also, I think, creates this sort of boundary and space for the reading to take place that matters a lot to us. That would fall into the realm of the idea of creating space through a tarot table, or what the fairy lights would then do, or the idea of drinking tea to immerse oneself in the experience and further our time with the tarot and when we engage with it. And then, of course, bags, like I said. So I have various, I guess, totes, and ones that are meant to be a little bit more on the go and minimal, but I do like to have bags that I know I'll throw multiple decks or books and journals in to go anywhere, to a park, to a coffee shop. I also have this one that it's a bag in a bag in a bag. I'll have, for example, a deck in a pouch that I will then put in this pouch, where I'll be able to keep maybe like 3 decks, and then I'll put that in my bigger tote. And it's all about keeping the deck safe and organized and in a space. And I know many others are similar, maybe not to the same degree as I am at times, but I know that that's something that's popular out there. Another one that I would consider a tarot cliche that I do, I'm weird. Oh, wait, sorry. I was like going through this list. I'm weird about people touching my decks. This is one that I know to some degree or another, a lot of us who take the cards seriously, who engage in tarot, we have our own sort of stipulations and guidelines when it comes to what decks we allow to be touched by others, if we allow others to touch decks of ours, and what that looks like, if we need to then do something afterwards, or if they have to go about it in a certain way. I know there's probably that internal cringe sometimes when somebody touches your deck and maybe they handle it in a way that you wouldn't, or they're too rough with it, and sometimes that means we only have very specific decks that we even allow others to touch. As somebody who reads for others very often, I have certain decks that I feel comfortable sharing with the public and allowing others to touch. I have had my fair share of experiences where I've used more precious decks on others or with others and allowed them to touch it, and things have gone awry, cards have gotten bent and creased and damaged, and so that has formed, I guess, my personal gnosis and guidelines in regards to others touching my decks and what that looks like and how and when I choose that to be. I think it's just the idea that it's a tool for us, we take it seriously, and of course somebody else coming into this isn't thinking of the cards in the same way that we are. I even think sometimes that if it were another tarot reader, we might just have different ways of approaching and handling the cards, so it still might be an issue or a point of contention anyway. But that would be, I guess, a cliche of mine that that is something I do or feel strongly about. Ooh, I'm not sure if you saw the lightning there. Number 5, or I guess, is this number 5? I kind of lost track, actually. So I started out with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I would say that this is quite the lightning. That one shook things up. But I started with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I think that almost all fellow readers of mine that I've spoken to have started with the Rider-Waite-Smith. I've met a handful that have started either with the Marseille or the Thoth, but I know most of us start with the Rider-Waite-Smith, and that mostly has, I think, to do with its popularity, its ease of access, and how widespread it is. It's kind of like everywhere you go is going to be inundated with versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Even if you aren't getting the traditional pixie artwork, you're getting a version of the Rider-Waite-Smith to learn from and start from, and I would say that that's generally the consensus starting point for the tarot community for most people who would consider themselves tarot readers now. So yeah, there's that, and it's funny that that's the system now that I use the least. Probably I would, if I had to kind of rank them in terms of their use on my part, Thoth would be at the top. Then we have the Marseille, and then I would say Rider-Waite-Smith falls as like a third there, and that mostly has to do with preferences in terms of the way I like to use the cards and how imagery factors into that. But yeah, I started with the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I think that's a big cliche. And that's really just what the public even thinks of when they think of tarot, are the images, those iconic images from the Rider-Waite-Smith. The next one, I use the Celtic cross, which is, I would say, arguably the most popular or well-known or cliched spread out there in terms of tarot. It's existed for quite some time in modern tarot history, I should say, not in prevailing tarot history. But as far as readers who are alive in the present, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who doesn't know what the Celtic cross is or know how to do it, although I would say it's gotten to the point of being overdone, and it's kind of a bit passé at this point, where it's unpopular because of the degree to which it rose and then the way it operates, and then of course there are the connotations with religion, the idea of it being a cross or resembling a cross in its name. But I do use it. I use it actually pretty often with clients. I have a video, I think, going through exactly how I approach it, which is, in my opinion, a little bit more modernized. I view it differently, and it's not as rigid and traditional. So I do have a video, I'll link it around, about the exact way I approach the Celtic cross and how somebody might try to modernize and incorporate it into their practice in a way that works, but I would consider that a big cliche on my part. And the final one that I had listed is that I do cleanse and interview my decks. I kind of put those into the same category because to me they have to do with maintaining the tool to some degree, interacting with the tool, I guess anthropomorphizing it like a little bit, maybe cleansing not as much, but to some degree then have to feel like there's something on this tool to need to remove off of it. So yeah, I put those as one. But I cleanse my decks in a bunch of different ways. I would say don't always cleanse every deck I get. I don't cleanse a deck after every time I use it or after every person touches it. It's more so a feeling for me, and occasionally I might take the decks that I've been using a lot over the course of a few weeks and just kind of cleanse them all at once. I do this sometimes through incense and burnables, whether it's some form of a smoke bundle, an herb bundle, or an incense. I'll also engage in sound cleansing, which I probably do the most because it's the least irritating for me. I might actually incorporate two cliches at once and cleanse with a crystal. I like the smoky quartz, and I know there haven't been as many times when I'm at in-person events lately, but I would keep one of these on my little tarot table or on my cloth, and after each client I would sort of either rest the deck alongside or on the crystal or tap it on the smoky quartz. So there's that. And then as far as deck interviews go, I know many of us do essentially the same thing in interviewing a deck, and I go about that sort of spread. So I would consider that a bit of a cliche as a fellow reader. And it's interesting to think about some cliches that are created or perpetuated or thought of by the public at large, those who are not within the tarot community, and then cliches that we as members of this community have and hold and think of, if that makes sense. So I think that about covers the ones that came to my mind. I thought this was a really fun tag, and I'm going to be curious to watch others' responses to Anna. Again, Anna's video was great, so I definitely recommend checking out her channel and this video. I know she's great about engaging with the community, starting tags, responding to tags. She's just very interesting in the way where she can find very unique ways to keep us thinking and engaged with each other and the tools that we're using, so definitely check her out. I hope you are all well. Like and subscribe if this was fun or interesting, and I invite anybody watching this to partake in the tag as well. Until next time, bye.